There we go. Look at that. Let me go back to live mode. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Start the day out stumbling. Hang on. Here we go. Let's get Rodney to the right. There he is.
All right.
Hi,
Can you
Rodney.
hear
How
me?
are you? How
Good.
are you?
How are you doing?
Lou, listen to that sound, that pristine sound, the vocal tones of Rodney Wilds.
It's unbelievable. It's should be crystal clear.
It should be. And if you have that, tell you what, little tip, if you're close to the mic, there'll be zero echo. You'll see what I mean. If you're
All
close to
right.
it.
Let's get this thing in here. How
Oh,
close do I
look,
have to be?
man. Oh, look.
How about this?
Ooh, look at, I think we have ourselves a Blue Yeti on the other end of this string.
It's something.
I love it. Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a good, hey, Angie. Good morning to you, young lady. How are you? Hope you're well. Hope you're well. Rodney, what's the news other than the new microphone, which I love? Thank you.
You know,
Ooh,
not terribly nothing new today. Nothing new this week. It's pretty standard week. We think we got a big day tomorrow in the markets with some stuff coming out. Thinking it might. A lot of people are projecting, or the guy that I listen to, are really take his advice. He thinks tomorrow's going to be a really good day for mortgage.
and we're going to talk about that. But first, let's talk about what we always talk about. Are we ready for Rodney's rate? I think we are. Oh, yeah, that's
That's
amen.
it. That's the
Oops,
intro of all intros.
it really is. Hit me.
All right, let's go. As you can see up here where my cursor is, the U.S. mortgage-backed securities, 30-year, 5.5% fixed is what we're looking at. And there's not been a whole lot of change today. It's down 16 basis points. Of course, we'd like for it to be going the other way. Red is not good on this chart for mortgage rates,
Okay.
but 16 bips isn't the end all of a what do you call it, a bad day. But we can kind of come down here and look at what's been going on in the last few days since last week. We've just been having challenging days. We've had on the fourth wasn't a great day. Here we have a couple days of recovery, and then here's where we are today. So
Beautiful.
just a little bit down, but as you can see overall, if you go back even to March, look at where we are. This is where the rates were in March, February, March, and here's our low, and it's obviously better than where it was. So
Right.
we're improving.
All right. So we're happy with that. I mean, and that's I titled this particular show today on optimism, and we'll get to that later on. But so fill me in. I'm all ears. What's going to happen tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow there's a let's see if I'm gonna try to pull up this economic calendar for tomorrow. There's a Barry Habib, which is the service that we subscribe to, thinks that our producer price index that's coming out tomorrow is going to be, and at noon there's a 30-year Treasury bond. Basically he thinks tomorrow is going to be a good day for mortgage rates. So the
In
guy's
other
a
words,
genius.
what
He's
what you're saying though is the economy's headed in the direction the Feds want. Bottom line, really, is what it is, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's been. I think you can see on that chart right there. It's been. We've been dragging along the bottom and still probably pretty close to the bottom, but I think we're on an upswing.
Did you want me to show this chart?
No, I'm good.
Oh, you mean from before? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the chart. Yeah, the just the where we just talked about it.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, that's good. That's good news. Things just keep tripping along. And today I've included some slides for local things. I wanted sometime before the end of the live stream, I wanted to include national numbers for the pendings and sales and all that kind of stuff. But I also wanted to throw in a little bit of not an ad, but some information about the Nashville area, because
Yeah.
what I'd like to be able to do is do two things with our program: is cover the national stuff as we've been doing on a regular basis, but because we're in the Nashville area, Rodney and I are specific. Again, I need to do this to cover CYA. I'm a realtor here with Benchmark in Williamson County. Rodney is a loan officer with First Trust, also in Williamson County. We can answer questions across the country for the most part. There's a few things that we probably don't have a good idea about. You can call if you have questions about that. That's what I'm trying to say. But the point is, what I'm trying to get at is that I wanted to be able to, as well as focus on the national stuff, try to include what does the impact do to us locally? Because things happen across the country, and they affect different areas differently. I mean, think of San Francisco and think of Detroit. Those are totally different. The effect nationally has affected each of those markets differently. But I want to include Nashville, Williamson County, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
That's where I was going with that. So, so the first thing that we were touching base on was the weekly housing trends from Realtor.com, and one of the first things that they talked about, and I really don't know, I don't understand this, so I'm asking. It says that rental vacancy rates. I've learned there's a super strong connection between rental information that is shared online and home buyers, because there's a lot of times they're first-time home buyers and they're trying to get out of the rental situation. So I thought it'd be smart to include a little more rental situations. Does that make sense, Rodney?
It does. It does.
Oh yeah, man, you sound really good. That new microphone sounds really, really good. You're going to break out into a song. I just know it. Before we're done is Moon River. Come on, you can do it.
Yeah, that'd be it.
So what, do you have any ideas on why there's so much more vacancy now? Is it because so many so many rentals are being built? What is it?
That's kind of, I don't know. That's kind of shocking, honestly. It's why there's so many vacancies, because it just well, I guess, what did it, about 6 months ago, it was just now, the rent was just now starting to level out, just not even going down, right? I mean, I think,
and it was spiking there for quite a period of time.
yeah. I mean, I just talked to a client of mine that their rent was going up like 9%. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, we got to get out of that situation.
Is that the people we have in common?
I don't know. It may have been.
Because we have a buyer right now that the reason that this is an interesting thing. At least I think it is. As people are moving through this market, because it's a merry-go-round, people come and people go, and they think they're going to buy, and then rates spike up and they have to jump off, and then rates come down and they jump back on, and round it goes. But there's almost always an inciting, I guess you would call it in storytelling, it's called an inciting event. When somebody decides to buy a house, there's the thinking phase, should we do it? Then they talk about and think about finances. And then the day comes, you go, that's it. We're buying a house. And you do your application with the LO, and you go out to start looking at houses. Well, that's what happened to this young couple. They're just the sweetest. They are the nicest people. I've really been blessed to work with these guys. But that's what happened to them. is they got notifications that their rent was going to jump up like a bunch. I don't know. I don't want to say a number because I'd be making it up, but it was significant enough for them to go, enough of that.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I mean this article's kind of contrary to what I've been kind of I guess seeing or whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
And it struck me as funny. And it says the new home sales, new home. You got to be careful when you're reading these things. And I've learned this over the years. When somebody says new homes, they mean stick built from the ground up, never been lived in. That's what new homes means. When you're talking about a house that's been around a minute, we call that in the business existing usually, or some that
Yeah.
maybe aren't in business, or used homes, like used cars. But
Right,
when
yeah.
you're reading articles for people that are real estate savvy, you have to watch out because you can interpret sometimes new homes on the market. You think that's existing and new. It's not. It's just they've
Right.
never been lived in, right? But here was a couple of really kind of an interesting couple of things. And I don't, I think probably, you tell me what you think about this, Rodney. The good news is, other than I don't know about tomorrow, there's nothing earth shattering to report.
No, no, it's nobody closed down this month or last few weeks or
Jobs are looking
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah. It seems to be the economy seems to be tempering inflation and hopefully get back get our rates a little bit lower.
Yeah, yeah. And so anyway, so some of the things that have been discovered is the median price grew 2.4 over last year. Now, relative to what we've been looking at, that ain't much. But again, that's a year over year number. If you move further down and read more about it, the existing home sale, we just talked about that, declined in March almost a full percent. So that's what some of this mind bending stuff, at least for me, that when you hear, list price or home prices were up 2.4%. A few months ago,
Mhm.
they were up 10% from last year, and before that, 18%. Just
Right,
stupid
right,
numbers. You've got year over year, and then you've got this month over month, and that's what Powell's been doing. That's what we've all been sweating to have the numbers
yep,
come down slowly, but without crashing. And that's what we've
right,
been doing. So
yep.
2.4%, that ain't that ain't much.
Right. Yeah. And it might surprise people that it's up, right? I mean, in half the population predicting foreclosures and everything else. So it's like, how many months do we have to you know, Andy, the whole world's not listening to us here.
We've got to fix that.
They're ignoring our, they're ignoring our
And
policy.
I've got an idea. I've got an idea. Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just just these. Let me. I just want to throw on. I seen that the home spent 18 days extra days on the market compared
Right.
to last year. Active inventory was at a slower price, um, and the median list price grew. I mean,
Yeah.
that to me is a formula for no inventory. And people with good rates are sitting in their houses and they don't want to sell. They don't want to sell. They don't want to trade a 2.5% for a 6% or whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And
but
there
the
was
house
the new.
prices aren't going down. Sorry.
No, yeah, well, but I mean, and what the um, new listings now in this particular case, new listings does include existing homes and new homes, but new listings, the measure of sellers putting up homes for sale was down again. It was down 22% from last year. And that's just what Rodney's talking about is right now, under normal circumstances, this is May. You show me a normal year other than the last couple of years, anything prior to 2020, I'm going to say If it was a normal year, we're in the middle of house selling season. I mean, we're in the thick of it because when we tip into June and July, it starts getting hot, slows down a little bit. That's just, I mean, springtime is selling time, and
Yeah.
yet it's down 22%. And so it's what Rodney was just talking about is who wants to sell when you can't buy something? Who knows what's going on? Active inventory was slower pace, um, with for sale homes up just 35% from a year ago. Huh? That's quite a bit, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean these numbers are it kind of sounds we're talking out of, with this year over year stuff. It sounds like we're talking out both sides of our head there.
It.
This is up and this is way down, and and then you
Yeah.
so. But yeah, it's like it's just coming off of such a weird market. That's why these numbers get like this, right? I mean, it's
Well, what's different? What I tell you, what's screwing everybody up? Sorry, that was strong language. The reason this is so weird is and I know we've said this before, but under normal circumstances, when inventory is low, prices usually go up. When scarcity brings a higher price. But because there's so few buyers by comparison to the houses for sale, you've got inventory that seems to be growing because nobody's buying, right? And you've got fewer buyers on the market because there's just less of them out there that can tolerate 6.x%, whatever that percentage can be.
yeah.
And so, I mean, under normal circumstances, that's what happens. And I mean, I could show you something. I'll show you something here. Let's see if we can do
Well, that's
this.
why we pay you all the big money, Andy, so you can show us something here.
That's right. That's exactly right. I wonder if this will work. Days on market. Wait, bear with me. Okay, hang on. We're going to do a screen share. Bing. Yeah, I know this is hard to see, Angie. I'm sorry about this. Sorry. But we're looking at the U.S. housing supply. There's currently 1.4 million homes for sale, 530,000 newly listed, which we just said, down 22% from last year. But median days on the market is up 23 days year over year. That's up 23 days. So 23, 43, 44, that's 100% from last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty close. And there's only 2 months supply currently. Now, this is national. Your area may be different.
It will be different. Yeah.
It will be different. But the point is, 2 months of supply and the prices, they're still going. Here's another one. This is really interesting. Gosh, where is it? It wasn't. Here we go. I wasn't going to do this, so I wasn't necessarily wired up in my head for this. 28% of the homes across the country sold for 20. They sold above list price. You can tell I didn't study this. But homes with price drops, 14%. That's up 7% over last year. I'm going to back up. The homes above list price, 25% fewer than above list price. And this the sale to list price is 98.9%, whereas a couple of years ago it was 105. I mean, it's just crazy numbers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like just something under 100 right now would make sense of what I'm seeing now. Of course, I see one out of 50,000 markets. So
right, and just to show, and like what I was talking about earlier, from what I'd like to do, I'll talk to Rodney about this and ask anybody that wants to comment later on. I want to be able to include national happenings with local impact. Because that matters for anybody that wants to buy or sell here, or is moving to here, or even maybe moving to the state, because it could be some similarities, I suspect some. I want to include that. So here's the when we look at the median sale price across the country, it's going to be different for everybody, and it's 400. In Williamson County, it's 835, and that's not even separating Brentwood, which is going to be well over a million. Median days on market 65. That's plus 58. That's a long time, relatively speaking, for us. Median days on. Geez, I didn't even read that before. Man. That means that they were selling for 6 days, 7 days.
Was that? Yeah, that was to close and everything. I mean,
That is amazing. That is wow.
well,
Wow.
I mean, if you look across, okay, if you got 400,000 across the country, right?
Yep, yep.
Everything under 400,000, especially even in this, in our outer areas, right? It's hard to find like 400,000 in,
Yeah.
say, Williamson, Davidson County, things like that. Maybe not that difficult, but so as you go out, you have a lot more, you have a little bit better opportunity because those houses just don't exist right now. And for us, that's why I feel like some of the bigger markets or the higher cost markets are still slower than, let's say, but the Clarksville area that has a lot of VAs or a lot of veterans they're doing, from coming in and out of the base at a
Right.
at a lower price point.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a weird time, and the whole reason I wanted to share that screen was really for this. A 2 month inventory, meaning it only takes 2 months to rotate the inventory. It is not a balanced market. That should be like a seller's market all day long. They should be able to ask for whatever they want. Buyers should be having to beg and to get a house, and that's just not happening. As we saw, there was a huge number of price drops, and that's still going on. And that's been Rodney's been saying this for months. You show me a house that's priced right and in good shape, and I'll show you a house more often than not is going to get multiple offers.
Yeah, they're selling. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then we had so it is just a weird market. So the next question on the table is why aren't would-be sellers listing their homes? There's another term for this. They're calling it quiet quitters. I don't know. Have you heard that term
I've
before?
seen that. That I seen that, and I didn't under. I was like, you know, what does that even mean? I get it for like our, I've heard the term for employment and things like that, but not not for home buyers. You know,
Yeah, for home
I just
sellers is
thought that.
what.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of a funny way to put that. You know.
Well, and I think let me ask you this: the I figure that there's two. I'm sure there's more, but there's two types of home sellers. I think one is I'd like to move, and I have the ability, the resources to move whenever I want. And it can be a bigger house, a smaller house, an empty nest, whatever the situation is. That's the first type. The second type is the one that they've gotten a divorce, they've lost a job, they've got to move to another city, whatever they have to move. And I figure that what this market currently represents more often than not are the people that are involved in something where they have to move. Maybe not forced, but like the inciting event where the rent went up, like I can't stand it anymore. That would
Yes.
qualify.
Yes.
I mean, does that make sense?
It does. I think that and a just a combination of pent up demand where somebody's been wanting to move, and then right after, we're coming out of that nightmare of a problem of trying to move. I mean, moving was a nightmare a year ago. So trying to find something, it's a lot better now. It's not perfect as you can see. We just went over numbers, but it's a lot easier to go and negotiate on a deal. than it was previously. So yeah, I think I would. I still don't think that anything is more important than those people sitting in these houses with low rates, and they just
Yeah.
can't bring it to themselves to make that big of a jump. But as these rates decline, some people can stomach a 5.5, where they couldn't do a 6. Now,
Yeah.
then the next people will be on board as the people who couldn't stand the 5.5, and they can get a 5. So
Right.
I think
And
it's just going to kind of triculate into the market. If triculate is a word, I don't know if it's a word, but I
if
think
it
they're
is,
going to triculate back into the market.
if not, we're going to submit that for
Yeah,
inclusion in the dictionary. Put triculate in there.
yeah. And what I mean by it specifically is when they like the rates, or the payment becomes affordable, they're going to sell and buy and do their transactions.
That's exactly right. Because I'm reading here. I noticed it's worth noting that this April had 49% more homes available for sale, active listings, compared to a year ago. That's due. Now, what they're saying is it's due mostly to high rates causing homes to sit on the market longer than usual. And those are people that are trying to sell.
Yeah,
Those are people that are trying to sell. And it's no wonder that people are tentative about the act of selling their house because, we get this. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not a gambler, but I'm always betting against the house. If I do that now and next month they drop rates by 2%, I'm really going to be ticked.
yeah,
Yeah, that kind of a mindset. And I think that it's easy for people to get caught up in that. But that's what they're saying is, and this is according to Daryl Fairweather, this woman with Redfin, just really, really, really something. In the way that she puts this quiet quitting is the phrase has become somewhat hackneyed over the last several months. It describes employees doing minimal, no offense, employees doing minimal possible work to skate by, but applying it to Americans looking for homes is a new twist. I mean, it's just like, because employers have been complaining about that quiet quitting, just sitting there for the paycheck.
right, right.
That's not a fun thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I get that. It's you're trading in your good rate, and if you like if I wanted to move first, kind of like what Angie's talking about, if I wanted to move and just go buy me or build me a house and just move into it, there's a little bit of uncertainty of what I would be selling my house for, right? I mean, I could lowball it, and that's probably how you would estimate, is just lowballing, like, hey, this is the minimum I think I'd get for it. So, you just with those factors, I think it's putting some hesitation in people buying and selling.
Yeah, I've got Angie. I'm glad you mentioned that about Angie. Angie, I'm going to speak to that about the RV idea. Over the years, I have learned when I'm moving people around, part of the responsibility of a realtor is to balance the buy with the sell so that it doesn't impact the family too awful much. That's my job, right? And so I've learned a thing over the years that there's a thing called a plan B. And when you're negotiating, let me just tell you a story. So Rodney and I have been talking about how houses have been on the market longer. When that happens, buyers like we have currently, we're able to save. I hope they're not watching because it makes me feel bad. $65,000.
65,000, yeah.
They were able to save that. Some of it was our negotiation, other was just timing. Where they'd been looking at the house and the thing dropped, their rent went up, and they said, we want to see this house, and we just caught it on the upswing. But one of the things was, so we've got a seller who had moved out of town. That's going to be that category one. Sellers gotta go. What does that do to her negotiation ability? It trashes it. It she's
Does it?
unable. If they're not independently wealthy, which some people can take it, other times that sounded like you were suspicious of that. If
Well,
somebody's been, go ahead.
yeah, like if it, I've done that. I've bought a house and not sold my old one, but I know it's going to sell. And like I was just saying, is like the uncertainty of exactly knowing what you're going to net out of it is. But if I would feel like I wouldn't be under that amount of stress, like people would just be trying to take advantage of me if I moved out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they might, but I would still think my house would I guess clear it up for me, because I'm thinking that was just. I get what you're
All
saying, but
right.
I'd say a lot of other people would be like, I'll wait because I feel confident in the market or whatever.
Okay. This is great. All right. I'm going to put things in a reasonable, in a sort of a sweet spot sort of a thing. Let's say it's $700,000 house, not 700,000. But in this particular situation, now we're going to set aside that for the seller we're talking about. What if they'd been sitting on the market for 6 months and you came in and you said, I won't give you what you're asking, but I'll give you this. If you'd been waiting 6 months, you're dropping two or
Right.
$3,000 a month to keep that. I mean, I'd call that holding
Right.
cost. I don't know, whatever you carrying cost, whatever you want to call it. Would you be motivated to sell at a lesser price just to get it off the books?
Yes.
You bet your ass you would. You bet your ass.
100%. Yeah. But I just feel like if I've got it for 6 months, I messed up on the front end.
There's no question. And sometimes, and that's usually what happens, because I don't expect the seller to have their finger on the pulse of the market. What they're going to do is look at the most recent house in their neighborhood that sold for the tippy toppest most dollar,
Yeah.
that's in twice as good a condition, and they'll say, mine's going to sell for that.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to be realistic about that. And it's our job to give them some ideas. And whether they agree with that or not is a different thing. And sometimes the agent will say, we're going to list at the price that you want. And if it doesn't work in a couple of weeks or a month, we can talk about pricing again. Is that fair? If you set that up as a conversation point down the road, then it works. This happens to be a person, I believe, that was a little bit unrealistic, clearly
Yeah.
unrealistic.
Right.
And that's all I'm saying. Now the difference is it's going to be significant from person to person. If somebody has tons of resources and they can afford the $2,000 a month hit for whatever long it takes, like you suggesting you are, then okay. But if somebody's running a little closer to the bone, I just want to, I've heard this before. I just want to sell it and be done with this. It's stressing me out because all of a sudden they have an answer to their questions. This is what I'm going to get. This is what I'm going to net. This is what I can put in my bank and call it a day.
Right. And it's when you describe it, that situation to me, of course, I would want to dump it. But I guess my thinking is like I'd be like, Andy, what is my price to sell it today? And then what is my price to sell it on the normal days of market?
And that's a question I always ask sellers when we get started. And it sounds like a trick, but it's not. If we were trying to sell your house, I'd say, Rodney, you know the market. You have a sense, because usually when people are getting ready to sell, they are on Zillow 24/7
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
figure out what's going on. And I'll tell them, what do you think that this thing's worth? And they'll go, it's X amount of dollars. And then I'm going to say, if it were a pinch and I could give you cash and you get done with it today, what would you take? And they'll give me a different number. And
Yeah,
usually that's what, if you can be in that range, you'll be okay, you know. Because we're back in the market now that a couple of years ago, we keep seeing this because it's the way it was. You could have a house for sale, put a cardboard sign in the yard, and you would sell it in a day and a half for top dollar
yeah,
while it's on fire. You know, we'll put it out after closing, you know.
yeah. And I don't even know who all used the cardboard sign in that equation. I mean,
Yeah,
I
they
think
just,
half the time it was just osmosis. People thought the house was coming on the market and it was already sold.
yep. And so we were talking, so that moves us to the plan B idea. I've got a situation now where homeowner with kids is in a house that's far too large for her, but she wants to stay in the same neighborhood, but there's no homes for sale, and she needs to sell the house she's in order to buy the next one. And she's saying, how do I do that? And from a structural, architectural point, as being a realtor, that's a heck of a tough question to answer, you know, because here you go. If a house comes up for sale in her neighborhood, right now she would have to submit an offer with a sale of home contingency attached. Which, what are the chances that's going to go? Not very good in this market. And if they did accept it, they would accept it at a much higher price than she needs to pay because she's got no negotiations. She's buying a house betting on the come. I'm
Right.
betting my house will sell. Don't know what for, but I'm betting. So, what I explained to her is she's got options. She can sell it in the regular market, and it needs work. It does. It just does. But it's big. It's 3,000 square feet in a sea of 2,000 square foot homes. She can list it, get an offer, have to wrestle with repairs, fix ups, and the possibilities of buyers falling apart at some point, which that doesn't happen so much anymore, but it is a risk. She could auction it and be done in one day and get a check in 30 days, no contingencies at all, period, and pay no commissions. But in order to make that happen, in order for her to get, here's the point, in order for her to, and her family, her kids, to find the house that they want, she can't be attached to anything. She's got to be free and clear. And how do you do that? The way you do that, and I told her right up front, I said, this is going to be weird and it's maybe even going to be uncomfortable for a minute, but you're going to have to sell the house, get the proceeds, put your stuff in a pod, which is weird, you know, but it only requires one move when you do things in a pod. And after you've got your resources together, now you're locked and loaded and ready to buy a house in that specific neighborhood when it comes. But it requires finding a place to camp out for a couple of months or a couple of whatever. Like Angie's talking an RV, if you can do it, that's a great solution. I don't know about 3 kids, but anyway, plan B.
Yep. Yep. So, are contingencies, are home sale contingencies a nasty thing on your offer right now? Is it workable at all to have a home sale contingency?
Well, on the one we just cleared all our contingencies, which you got notification today. Um, there was no repairs at all, and that's part. You know, when we jump back to that, this is the lady that moved, and we got the $60,000 deal. I'm sure that she's gonna walk away thinking she lost money. She didn't. That's just what the house was worth. She didn't lose anything. You can't lose something that you don't have, right? And so the house was finally priced correctly. But she was really a stickler on getting anything fixed. So it must have really, and she'd only owned the place, I think, 2 years. So she surely didn't, unless she put a ton down, she didn't have much, didn't have any equity. Um, and so that's, I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but that was what she said was, I'm not going to fix anything unless it's like a safety issue.
Yeah, I
I
was
never
I was
heard that.
more asking like if you're submitting offers right now as a buyer, um, are you getting any looks at all if you got a home sale contingency, or is it just a killer?
Well, isn't that as, boy, that's a fantastic question. You show me a house. This is really a good question, Ron. And if I go on too long, just tell me. Uh, if you're attached to a condition and you're trying to buy somebody else's house, you just have no negotiation ability. Is it a problem? I think is what you said. I was so washed up in my head. Yeah, it's a problem because here's how you would have to make. This is just my opinion. And sometimes the stars align like it did for my folks. If you have a sale or contingency that you have to do, the first thing, well, you're surely not going to be looking at houses. And if something comes up I need to know about, will you tell me? Because I can't see the thing while I'm yapping about this, meaning the comments. If you have to have a sale or home contingency in order to buy a house, you're not going to be buying a house that's one day on the market because they're expecting a cash offer, no contingency. That's how I'm going to sell this house. You're going to submit that, and chances are pretty good they won't even look at it. They may even reject it, or at the very least, you'll put a short string or short time limit on it. That's when I want a house bad, I'll put 12 hours, 9 hours on it, submit the offer, and require a response in 9 hours because I want to get it done and locked in. If you do that with a sale of home contingency, they're going to blow by that time extension and figure if you call back, you really need help,
Yeah,
and it bolsters their negotiation. So with a sale of home contingency, I keep repeating this because I don't want to forget, you're going to be looking for a house that is been on the market for a long time. And there's only two things that can cause that. And if I were to ask the crowd, what would the two things
yeah,
be? Price and condition.
yeah,
So buying a house with a sale of home contingency means that the house that you're looking at, if it's the house of your dreams, buy it. I mean, buy it. If it's just a place to keep the rain off, think twice with this sale of home contingency because you're, in my opinion, there's a really good chance you're really overpaying or getting a house that maybe is needing a little work.
gotcha. So it'd really kill you if on the possibly kill you on one that goes on the market one day. They're going to have six offers better than yours, right? But if you find one with a been on the market a few days, they might be willing to look at it.
They're willing to look at it, and there's only one reason. It's just what we said. It's
Right.
overpriced, or in their opinion,
Because
if
they ain't
you
got nothing else to look at anyways.
they got nothing else to look at. And for somebody that's just listed a house overpriced, they don't know that yet.
Yeah.
It takes 2 weeks for the market to beat them up a little bit into a state of reasonableness. And what they'll get is they'll get one offer with a sale of home contingency, not having any idea that the home is still overpriced. It just happens to be available for somebody. When you have a contingency going in, and I guess the phrase these days is change my mind. If you have a contingency going in, you're always asking, Rodney, I'd really like to buy your house, but I got to sell mine first. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you just go ahead and put that at the end of every sentence.
Yeah.
We're going to do that on Tuesday. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ugh, God, it's just awful. That is no.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that
No, I get you. Yeah.
yeah.
Now that
But
makes
there's
sense.
certain
I was just wondering, because I know there's been some more negotiations available. Just I didn't know if home sale contingencies have eased their way back in.
doesn't mean that it's not possible. And sometimes there's houses out there that are, I'm going to call them unique, but that's not what I really mean. What I mean, there's houses out there that are just weird. Have you ever walked in? I've been in a number of homes where they have what they call captured rooms. Have you ever seen those? You walk into a closet and there's another room behind it. What? It's called a captured room and there's no hallway access.
Yeah. See, no, I'm a lender, so I stay in. I stay behind these computer screens and let my appraiser call me and tell me that he went into the bedroom and all of a sudden he ended up into somebody else's bathroom. So
Yep. And so I'm going to address some of this. Hi, Philip. How are you doing, buddy? Yep, we allow pets most of our properties. You guys are working a deal behind the scenes. I see what's going on. Okay, so I think I see that. Rodney's going to correct me. He always fixes me up on that. So Angie had a question about auctioning, and I think one of these weeks we need to have Nick on here, Rodney,
yeah,
our auction guy. An auction is an amazing thing, especially. I get it. Do I have time for me to tell another story? Or it's a quick one. Okay.
my battery's at like 97%.
Okay, so we can.
You got
Okay.
like 4 more hours.
Do you have a 2:00 appointment? Is what I'm really asking. No.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So there was. This is a story about auctions. And we've got one coming up too. There's two types of auction. There's a reserve and there's an absolute. A reserve means I'll sell my house, but it has to meet the lower threshold or I'm not selling it. And it has to be advertised that way. You're not going to tell what the lower number is, but it has the impact of the people that are coming. They don't feel like it's a deal. I don't know why. Then there's absolute. Absolute means we're going to sell this thing. And if somebody comes up with a basket of $487 and 3 chickens, we're going to sell it for that. That's what absolute means. We're going to take the absolute offer, period. Well, there was a house, and you can look this up. It's called Rain Tree Forest. It's here in Williamson County. I would live over there in a heartbeat. I love that area. It's got older homes. I would say a few years ago, 500s was what it was, but I bet it's 7, 8, and 9s easily now, probably for houses over there in Rain Tree. And when you drive back in there, these clusters of areas, almost like cul-de-sac. It's awesome. Mature trees. It's just a great place to live. I mean, I love that place. But because there's older homes, there was a place that a fellow wanted me to sell for him. This is a few years ago now. And they had lived there since it had been built. And sometimes what happens is if somebody's lived there the whole lifetime of the house, upgrades are a little less likely to happen because they're happy, and it isn't until you buy a new house and somebody's place needs updated, and that's when they get updated to the nines, is moving into somebody else's old stuff. Anyway, so it needed updating big time in order to compete with the other homes for sale in Rain Tree Forest. So here's what he was up against. The normal house on his square footage, let's say that it was sold, I'm going to make this up because I can't remember, was 700. But he'd have to fix his house up to the tune of probably fresh paint, new floors, at least refinished floors. It was a 3,600 square foot house, new cabinets, new kitchen, new appliances, all of it. All of it. It probably would have 80,000. Maybe, I would think. I'm kind of guessing a little bit, but
Yeah, a lot.
chunk of change to bring it up to speed to the houses that are selling. Because remember, when people are doing comps, it's got to be like and kind. It's got to be the size and the condition. It's got to be both. So we said we could try to sell it, but people are, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get an offer. They're going to have a long list of repair contingencies, or they're not going to buy it because his house is old, 20 years old, 25 years old. Or you can auction it. And he was like, what? And so my auctioneer, Nick, the guy that hopefully we can get him on the live stream, came in and said, here's how it works. Explained just what I did. Reserve, absolute. So the day came. So they fixed up the house, and the way they do it is they'll have the house open for a few hours before the auction. Somebody just blows in there, walks through, and then stands in the yard and holds up their paddle. It's an amazing thing. And so the day came, and we're all there, and it was like there wasn't very many people there, and I was like sweating it. And there's this big truck that looks like a place you'd go to get tacos or ice cream from.
Yeah.
That's what these auction trucks looks like. I want to buy an ice cream and that house. Anyway, so people are looking at it, and the crowds start to build, and then about 30 minutes before the thing, people started gathering around. It's an amazing thing, the human element of that. And there was that we probably had 6 or 7 bidders, and so they're in the so he started good to go to 400,000. So we already had, opening bid on this absolute cleared away what he wanted in his reserve, though we did it absolute. But in his head, he told me behind the scenes, man, if I don't get X, I'm going to die. I think it was 480. Yeah. And I go, okay. God, it's like, it was stressful. It was something. And so he starts calling, and if you know how auctions work, they'll get a little frantic, and then they'll slow down. They'll start to slow down, and then there's like nobody pulling the train anymore. And then there was this one woman who came. She was probably there 6 minutes total. He had already started talking about the house and the neighborhood, and he'd already started filling in the backstory for the place. And this woman came up, 6 minutes, goes in the house, comes out. I watch her fill out the form, for I'm going to put a bid on this thing, because they don't run credit, they don't do any of that. The bottom line is, when you win, you pay 10%, whatever it is, and if you don't come through, they keep the 10%. That's what happens, So even if somebody bails, you still got a pretty nice chunk of change. Do that a few times and you keep the house, Anyway, so 6 minutes, lady fills it out, and they started slowing down, meaning the bidders. And then, when there's people bidding, there's always these auctioneers out in the field, talking to them. Come on, you can do it. Come on, give me 500, 510. Come on, look at that house, And this lady, she's standing out in the middle of wasn't nobody paying any attention to her, flips up the chart and added it $60,000-$70,000. All of a sudden, everybody got energized, right? What? and he walked away. I tell that whole story because that's how auctions go, Yeah. And he walked away getting more than what he was hoping for by a long shot. And the bottom line with auction is there's no contingencies, none.
No repairs. Yeah.
Nothing. And if the closing date is 30 days, it says got to close within 30 days. They'll make sure that it's not on a Saturday or Sunday, right? If you don't show up, they're keeping the 70%. If you do show up, you get, to buy the house. And the person doing the auction, meaning the seller, they don't have a commission. They don't have anything. It's just they show up on closing day and get their money. It's the cleanest, nicest, for a house that's needing work. It's a great thing to do. So I tell you that whole story, which was exciting to relive that. This lady that I'm telling you about with the kids and the big house and the two options, she's going to have to find in order to be as stress free as possible, she's going to have to find a plan B, a place to hang out, which I think she's already got that, and either go through the sales process like I've described, or auction it and be done.
Yeah. I like that. I like that story, Andy, because it's you know, I'm surprised there's not more auctions now, because of just the market. I feel like more auctions would be as successful just because of the bidding on them, if that makes sense. But
It does, because I am telling you, because I've watched these things now I've paid real close attention, and I mean, it doesn't work in every situation. If your house is priced right and pristine, that is not the way to go. You can get
right,
top dollar and demand. I'm not fixing anything.
yeah,
You can,
right,
if you are selling a good product, let's just put it that way, and it's priced right, you call the shots and you get the money that you need in order to surrender that nice piece of property to somebody else. But
yeah,
for the but but for the but for the but for the rest of it, the deal, and it's the craziest. It's crazy because it goes from every home buyer I've ever worked with and gotten a contract with ever was trying to buy the house for the least that they could get it. That I want it, but can we
yeah,
can we whittle that down another 2,000? No, don't. I mean, they're willing to lose a contract over $5,000. And I'm like, don't do that. In an auction, you don't. It goes from I want to buy that house to I'm going to beat that other guy, and I don't care if
yeah,
it costs me an extra twenty
yeah,
thousand dollars. I'm going to beat that son.
yeah, yeah. That's why I lose money in auctions all the time. Is I want to answer. Philip had a question there. I want to answer that, but I'll tell you a quick story about an auction. My son runs he's on the at college at UT, and him and his best friend work a Ducks Unlimited chapter up there for the college, and they had their banquet. And he's like, Dad, me and Braden are the only ones that know that there's a Ducks Unlimited Glock pistol inside this Yeti cooler, right? And I was buying other stuff at the auction anyways. I'm like, well, buy the cooler. I'm like, I mean, if I'm the only one that knows about it, just buy it. I was like, whatever. So me and my you actually know him. Braden is Jason Sparrow's son, right? So Jason's son. They room together. So yeah, so me and Jason were bidding against each other in here at home against this one cooler that only our two sons knew about. And I'm like, great job, guys. Y'all keep it up. But
So the price went up, I'll bet.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We're bidding against each other. But Philip had a question. He said, is there a second position product the bank offers to help the person buy their offered house and second bank covers the down payment for closing? Yes, there is a product for that. It's a bridge loan. It's very similar to a home equity line, except it just has a 1 year maturity date on it. And what they do is they actually charge the closing cost on there because they do know it's temporary, and that's that's the only way they can do to get any kind of fee income. They charge closing cost on it, or you pay your closing costs is what I should say, and then it can pull equity out of your current home, and you can use that to purchase your new home for the down payment, closing costs, all that. That is a very good product. We use it a lot. Um, the downside is it is not being used as much anymore, just for the fact that the interest rates are higher, the new house price is higher. It's You just have to have your finances in very good order to carry, the new house payment, the old house payment, and the new HELOC or bridge loan payment that you just put on there to pull out the cash or your equity. So I like okay, if I'm moving, I am moving, right? I am not selling my house first. I'm going to find any way possible for me to move into a new place on my own time, like reduce that stress. Like, I don't want to have a heart attack or something. So, I don't like to try to sell my house and move at the same time. So, I would definitely do a bridge loan, or like it, Angie, if you're there now, you could just go get a home equity line of credit, and don't use it, and it's just available if you need it. And that way you shouldn't be paying any cost on it. Now, if you wait until you're ready to sell, then it's going to be a bridge loan because they know you're going to move out of it. So, but if you got it now, it's just a home equity line of credit, and you could get that for free in most areas of the country. You can get that put on there for free and get your line, so you're ready to go if you wanted to go that route later.
Almost waiting for it to answer. Wait, what?
Yeah, did she? She said, would you recommend a bridge loan for me? No, they're not a bad deal. I mean, it's basically, what is it worth to pull your equity out and use it to sell, in order for you to move leisurely? Like, if if you have some guy that absolutely does not care, he is like, I will save 10 cents and I will move 3 times if I have to. Um, that you know what I'm saying? That guy right there would not be a good deal for him, because but for me, I'm like, no, I don't want to do all that, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm not, it's just not me, right? So you have to find out what fits. Like Angie's husband, right, is, he's a contractor and does a lot of stuff like that. So that may not, he may be willing to do that, right? So for me, it's a convenience fee. It's like, how much would you pay to sell your home at your leisure, people not coming in while you're living there, and you can get it staged, you can get it fixed, you can get your pictures done, you can get all that when you get out of it. And of course, it costs a little bit more, but what's that worth? That's yeah, so that's, to me, is who that is good for. It's kind of your personality.
And that gives you that. It gives you that. I'm calling it Plan B for lack of a better term, because we did that with Betty Wiseman. We did that so that she could buy her next house while she was selling her current one, and that's what she did. Gave her a place to lay her head while it was going in process.
Yeah, and I don't exactly remember. I remember Betty, but I don't remember what product we did. But yeah, I mean, that's we use it all. We use it a lot. It's just, you kind of get a feel for what people want to do, and say, how they are about, like I say, for me, it's a convenience fee, and it would be worth it
Yeah.
if I could do it that way.
Well, and I think we could probably wrap this. Wrap this. It's been really good today, and I sorry for going on, but I got pumped about a couple of things today. Um, the idea of a Plan B is, in my opinion, so worth it, because when you are at a disadvantage for negotiations, that can be a lot of money. And I'm telling you, it can be a lot of money. If you had to negotiate an extra 10 or $20,000, that's a lot of rent, you know?
Well, I mean, to that exact point, Andy, I mean, the closing costs wouldn't be 10 or 20,000 on a bridge loan, and if you could afford the payments, that would remove that contingency. So even a bridge loan, for me, I'm using it for convenience, but for you, you're saying that, hey, you're liable to get a better deal on the house you're buying, more than the closing costs could potentially cost you. So I didn't think about it like that. Mine was more about convenience, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, removing the contingency. Well, I guess you are removing the contingency by doing the home equity line of credit. So that's a good thing. So
Yeah. Because I'm telling you that anytime you have a contingency in there, just add, is that okay to the end of everything that you say.
Yeah.
because it's like,
Right.
please, please, nice face, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, God, that was great. Did we get everything? Angie, you know what? We will get. I'll make a promise to you because I've talked to Nick about this already. I just hadn't, and I only briefly touched on base with Rodney. We'll get Nick Schufert on here, the
Yeah.
auctioneer, to kind of flesh that out. Maybe just for one segment, you know. um, but you could tell it's an amazing thing to see, but it's scary. It's scary. Um,
I'll follow up. Angie says, but you're dependent on selling still, and what if it doesn't work out the way you need? Um, you're actually not dependent on selling that property. You could retain that forever. I mean, you could actually turn around and lease that property out. You just took the bridge loan out. You may not want to. You may want that cash for other reasons, but yeah, that's kind of how you need to look at it. Is like for me, I would be saying, Andy, what is my bottom dollar on this thing? If it just doesn't go the way I want, what do you think the absolute lowest is I could sell? As long as I was happy with that, and my finances are good, I would
mhm.
I would take that number and rock on, because you can't. I mean, nothing's ever for certain.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that was fun, and we've got two situations where it's exactly where I'll bring stories to you when we see how that plays out because she's got a specific. She wants to buy a house in a very specific neighborhood. That's a terrible disadvantage for negogetions.
For
God.
negotiation, right? But
Uh,
if you want to live there, you just buy it, right? I mean,
hey, that's if it's your dream house, but there's more to the story anyway. Listen, Angie, thank you so much for all the questions. Philip, hi, Wendy. Thank you for so much for all your participation. We just love you guys to death and really appreciate it a lot. Rodney, thanks for all your input today. You've been a beast.
man, that's just what I do.
I know,
I'm just beast like.
beast mode with a new microphone. Yeah, with a new microphone. So anyway, we will talk to everybody next Tuesday, and we might have some news for you. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to see how
All right,
that.
yeah. Have a
So
good week.
where's my
See you,
outro?
everybody.
Got to find my outro button.